Okay, well, as you know, we run a lot of boot camps around here, and in the last boot camps that we ran, either here in London, one of the guys who took it went through the whole thing, and of course, one of the great things we put an enormous amount of emphasis on is storytelling, arc of story and character. And he wrote to us recently and said, I still don't understand this storytelling thing. Can you explain it to me? Well, if he's having problems with it, odds are a lot of other people are having problems with it too. So I want to explain the nature of storytelling and why it's so important for the kind of stuff that we do. Fundamentally, in the old days, before everybody had an iPhone, a smartphone, and made their own video, there was a very limited amount of content, whether it was on television, actually it was the only place it was, because there was no place else to put it. So because there was such limited content and video creation was in the hands of so few people, the people who made it could basically get away with anything, including news stories, which a lot of people have an interest in, of just yellow strips and, a couple of lines of narration, or documentaries, which were just facts jammed down people's throat. And the idea of storytelling really didn't take much precedence with people. Today, with the incredibly competitive world of thousands of cable channels, even more, thousands of non-cable channels, over-the-top, people online, videos on Facebook and Watch and YouTube and stuff like that, it's an incredibly competitive marketplace. So if you want to communicate your ideas or tell your news stories or even hold someone's attention, you must become a great storyteller. Now, what does that mean to become what does that mean to apply the rules of storytelling, particularly arc of story and character? Those are the two elements to it, to something that conveys information or news or public opinion or stuff like that. I understand how you do it with a movie. I understand how you do it with everything else. That's the question he asked, so that's what I'm going to try and answer. One of my favorite movies, and to show you what a geek I am, is Forbidden Planet. Now, maybe you've never seen it, but it's a 1950s science fiction movie, in the era of space travel with, when people made terrible black and white movies. When I was a kid, it was on $1 Million Movie in New York, which was on every day after I came home from school, which is all I did instead of homework. The interesting thing here is that Forbidden Planet, for people who like science fiction, is one of the all-time classics. And if you watch it, and you can find it on YouTube, it still holds up pretty well. What makes Forbidden Planet work is not the special effects, because they didn't really have anything. They had flying saucers hanging on strings, unlike movies today. What makes Forbidden Planet work is the plot. Now, what's interesting here is that the plot of Forbidden Planet is exactly the same plot as The Tempest by William Shakespeare, which was written about 350 years before Lonely Planet ever got produced. They both have the same plot. A father who's protective of his daughter that conjures up a monster that kills the man who tries to take her away. In Shakespeare, it's Prospero and his daughter, and they're on an island in the Mediterranean somewhere. In Lonely Planet, they're on the planet Altair 4, and it's Dr. Morbius, played by Walter Pidgeon, one of the all-time great actors from the 50s. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that the plot line is absolutely, positively the same. They both follow the same storyline. Good enough for Shakespeare, good enough for science fiction. When we teach our courses in how to do video storytelling, we often draw from popular movies in Hollywood. Movies understand the necessity of grabbing your attention early, getting you invested in a character, and then taking that character through an arc of story that will hold your attention until you get to the very end. That's why you stay to the end of the movie. You want to find out what's going to happen. The other night, we went to see Rear Window, which is an old 1950s Alfred Hitchcock classic movie. And the plot, essentially, I'm sure you've seen the movie before, is that, the photographer, his leg is broken and he's trapped in a wheelchair and he can only stare out the back window. And by staring out the back window, he sees what may or may not have been a murder carried out. And of course, you wait until the end of the movie to find out, was he crazy or was this actually a murder? The Hitchcock could have revealed in the very first frame that, yes, there was a killer here and here's how we found out. He doesn't do that. And the reason he doesn't do that is what he used to call the MacGuffin, the thing that everybody is looking for. It's the same thing that Shakespeare applies in all his stories, the same thing in Lonely Planet, the same thing in any great film that you look at. You get invested with a character in the very, very beginning, and then you follow the arc of story. You set something up, something is going, did he see the murder? Did he not see the murder? And then you stay through 90 or 120 minutes to get to the end to find out the resolution, which obviously comes at the end of the film. When you're doing real documentaries or news stories, you have to do the same thing. You have to do two things. First thing you have to do is you have to invest the viewer with the character. You have to care about the character. So very, very early on in the structure of your story, you have to introduce the viewer to who the main character is, and then you have to say what has happened to them to make them stay with you until the end of the story. This is what we call what trip they're going on. So in the case of Lonely Planet or The Tempest, will the captain of either the spaceship or the ship that lands at the island steal the daughter away from Prospero or Dr. Morbius? And will Dr. Morbius, using the magic of the Krell civilization, or will Prospero, conjuring up a great storm on the Mediterranean, be able to kill the captain before the captain steals the daughter? The plot line is always the same, and we stay with the story until the end to find out the conclusion. Every story that you do, I understand you're not doing stories about, interplanetary, intergalactic travel. You're not doing stories about murders seen through the back window through your camera. What you are doing stories about is little tiny stories, but in each little tiny story, the rules remain the same. You have to have a character you care about, and there has to be an initial problem that they're dealing with, and then that problem has to go to a resolution that comes at the very end. If you can put those things together, if you can find a character and arc of story, no matter what the topic, you will have a great piece that everybody wants to watch every single time. If you really want to learn more about this, go to thevj.com and check out our lessons on storytelling. I think you'll find them not only interesting, but important. See you later.